Quick, which piece of copy would you be more likely to trust? Breaking! You won't believe this brand new miracle supplement that bestows men with demigod strength in just 1 hour. Or, Harvard scientists discover the missing strongman mineral that can boost muscle growth almost immediately. You probably said the second one, and for good reason. That first piece of copy sounds salesy. Ugh. And if there's one thing that will make both clients and readers hate your copy, it's when it sounds too salesy. So, let's get clear on exactly how to banish salesiness from your writing. But first, we need to learn about our enemy. Miracle Cure leaves 98% of women stunned at weight loss results. Make easy money while you sleep with this one weird trick. Buy this and you will be bathed in eternal happiness. Okay, maybe the last one was a bit extreme, but I'm sure you've seen copy like this out in the wild and thought to yourself, who would buy this? It sounds like a scam. In fact, you may have even heard about legendary copy from decades ago that sold millions of dollars of products, but when you read it, it gives you the same ick. Then you think to yourself, how on earth did anyone trust copy that sounds like this? Well, before we dissect the things that make copy sound salesy, the things you probably want to avoid, we first need to face a harsh truth that will also explain why some salesy copy used to work. And I'm sorry, but if you're a copywriter, you won't want to hear this. People do not like to read copy. People do not like ads, and people do not like being sold to. Unless you're a copywriter who does this stuff for a living, the average human doesn't jump out of bed in the morning excited to find out what new ads they're going to see that day. It's the same reason you can't wait to click the skip ad button on YouTube, or why you close pop-ups as soon as they open on a website, or why you want to scroll past ads on Instagram to get to the next post from someone you actually follow. So with this harsh truth being a reality, us marketers and copywriters are already on the back foot. People would rather avoid our ads. In fact, to get people to pay attention at all, we have to adhere to the psychological principles that move people to act. We have a whole free course on exactly how to do that, so click the link in the description to watch our copywriting mega course if you want to give yourself the best possible chance of persuading readers. But for now, when we're talking about what makes copy salesy, just remember that a key reason things can sound salesy in the first place is because people don't want to be sold to. Things that sound like they're trying to sell too hard are naturally repulsive. That's important to remember because it explains why some copy that sounds salesy today used to work so well. Miracle Cure leaves 98% of women stunned at weight loss results sounds like an ad. Why? Because we've seen ads like this before. They've been around for decades. We instinctively know that this headline is just an ad in disguise because we've seen companies do the same thing to sell weight loss solutions again and again. This style of writing is joked about in movies, TV shows, and memes all the time. It's so societally linked with that stereotypical, bombastic style of sales and advertising that it's no wonder we easily recognize it as an ad. And what do we like to do with ads? We ignore them. We ignore them because we know it's probably just trying to sell us a solution that doesn't work that well. Even if we're genuinely interested in losing weight, that immediate recognition of it being something that's trying to sell to us can be enough to put us off. This is particularly true within niches that have a long history of solutions that come across as scammy or fail to achieve what they promise. But now imagine you travel back in time 50 years ago to the 1970s. Suddenly, you're not bombarded with as many ads day to day. There's no internet, and advertisers have a harder time reaching you. So you see far fewer ads of any kind, let alone ones that use that bombastic style we just spoke about. Therefore, Miracle Cure leaves 98% of women stunned at weight loss results sounds less like an ad and more like a genuine discovery, published as some kind of official article, simply because that style hasn't become a stereotype for an ad yet. This is how the same ad can have a completely different response when directed at someone who doesn't immediately link it to scams or solutions that don't work. That is why some legendary copy you've heard about worked super well decades ago but wouldn't hit the same today. It was written for an audience with far less exposure to that style of ad. There's actually a name for all this. We call it market sophistication. In other words, if you're selling to a market, a group of people who all have the same problem, but that market has been heavily advertised to you over the years, you will have a harder time selling to them for the exact reason we just mentioned. They're used to being sold to, so they can recognize ads more easily and are used to seeing solutions pop up that don't work that well. But nowadays, even outside of individual markets, the fact is that salesy style has become so widely synonymous with ads and scams that people across most markets are just less likely to trust it. And it's this phenomenon that leads ads to sound salesy. Over the years, a few telltale signs have emerged that make copy sound this way. So let's break them down and discover how to avoid them in your writing. There are 3 of these salesy elements. But before we dive in, let me be clear. Just because these elements have the potential to make ads sound salesy, it doesn't mean they're always off limits. Typically, it's the severity and combination of these elements that really cause copy to come across as salesy. To an extent, particularly in less sophisticated markets, these elements still have their place. But regardless, if you think your copy does sound salesy, these are the things you should be looking out for and changing. Oh, and don't worry, after I've revealed all 3, I will also show you how to fix them. The first element of salesy copy is big claims. Master the guitar in 2 weeks, get a 6-pack with no exercise, earn $20K per month from your phone. These are all big claims. They're promising things that are difficult to believe based on our existing knowledge of how the world works. Surely it'll take more than a couple weeks to sound like Tony Iommi. No way you can get a 6-pack without at least doing a crunch or 2, right? And who would pay me $20K a month to sit on my phone all day? Now, in the right context, big claims are absolutely fine, and we'll talk about how to make them work when we discuss fixing salesy copy in a little bit. But for now, we have to recognize that stating a big claim in our copy will immediately trigger our reader's BS detector. And like we've already highlighted, big claims were a hallmark of old school ads working in previously low sophistication markets. So people have had 50 years to catch on to the fact that often big claims equal big lies. Anytime you write something that tells of almost unbelievable results, like how fast, easy, or huge an outcome can be, and especially if you get negative reactions from your client or your readers, you'll want to think about the fixes of big claim copy that I will reveal in a minute. Next, the second element of salesy copy is bold language. Guaranteed results. The world's #1 expert confirms. You're about to hear life-changing advice. Bold language often comes across in absolutes, bordering on arrogance, telling people that you as the copywriter or business have all the answers, which is why you'll notice that bold language often accompanies big claims. But even without big claims that relate to the reader's desire, bold language can still come across as a business being a little bit too confident in themselves, and in turn, it's naturally off-putting. But worse, bold language again triggers the BS detector. Our natural response to absolutes is often skepticism. Why would they feel the need to say this thing so arrogantly if it were actually true? Maybe they're compensating for not actually telling the whole truth. Just like big claims, bold language can go over the edge and become hyperbolic. So often, copy that pretends that what it has to say is the best ever actually has the opposite effect of what it intends. Instead of building trust, it erodes it. And don't worry, I'll tell you how to fix bold language issues too. But not before I reveal the final element of salesy copy. New copywriters are particularly guilty of using this one: cliches. You won't believe this breakthrough discovery. This game-changing trick will skyrocket your progress. Act fast, this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity ends soon. These are lines that just scream ad. Just like how particular techniques or promises become recognizable as ads over the years, cliche copywriting is the same. Phrases and terms that get used again and again immediately signify to someone that they're about to get sold to. Hence, the whole thing comes across as salesy. If you're a new copywriter, this can be a particularly difficult trap to avoid because you sometimes end up studying and copying old ads that basically invented these cliches. So naturally, they're going to end up in your own writing. There's not a full list of words to avoid. Of course, context is everything. But one thing's for sure, if your copy sounds like copy, it won't get as much attention from readers. So it's really important you know how to identify cliches and how to stamp them out. Okay, so those were the 3 elements of salesy copy: big claims, bold language, and cliches. You'll also notice that they often work in unison to make copy sound even more salesy. Oh, and by the way, their stain isn't restricted to copy alone. If the design or the audio of any ads you're creating puts thoughts of salesiness in the mind of your reader, often things like bold red text or cheesy sound effects, then they're going to be equally as repulsed. Anyway, when it comes to purging these three salesy elements from our writing, how can we avoid or fix them? Easy. Listen to this. When it comes to curing big claims, there is a simple medicine. Make your claim more believable. There are a few ways to do this, but let's start with an example. In his brilliant book, Tested Advertising Methods, copywriting legend John Caples tells us about a simple change in a headline's claim that increased results by making the message more believable. Here's what he said. The old headline was, John Smith made $25,000 the first year writing motion picture scenarios. The new headline was, John Smith sold his first motion picture scenario for $140 1 month after completing the course. Every reader could imagine himself making $140, but few could imagine themselves making $25,000. This is a fantastic example of the first method for fixing big claims. Tone down the claim. There's no perfect measuring stick for this, of course, but you need to ask yourself, or better yet, ask a friend, if your current claim is just too big to believe. Then go back to them with a smaller version of the claim that is still interesting, but not unbelievable. In this case, $25,000 was just too much money. It sounded like fantasy. But $140 over a shorter time span? That sounded doable, and therefore didn't trigger the reader's BS detector. Toning down claims is an easy way to avoid salesy writing. And here's another way to make big claims more believable. Provide immediate proof. Let's look at a real example of how I did just that writing for my beef jerky company. We initially threw up some copy that stated the most protein in any jerky available today. That sure sounds interesting to someone who values their protein, but of course we would say that. It's our jerky. We want to make it sound good. Why would someone just take our word for it? Instead, we decided to provide immediate proof, and conversions went up after we changed the claim to 21% more protein than Jack Link's in every bag. This referred to our biggest competitor on the market and gave a real statistic about how much more protein we had than they did. By working proof into our copy and slightly reframing the claim, not only did it become more accurate, it also became more effective. Which brings us nicely onto our final method for destroying big claims. Be specific. Like I said earlier, there's nothing wrong with wanting to state a big claim when it's true and is likely to grab attention, but there's another fact that you need to deal with. Being vague or generic in your claims makes them less believable. Why? Because when you use a generic claim like burn belly fat fast or best on the market, it sounds like you're just throwing around words that you think the reader wants to hear. They'll be sat there thinking, they just want to make it sound impressive. But when your claims are also specific, it feels like perhaps you're quoting a genuine piece of evidence. Why else would you use such a particular number or a specific term? For example, burn belly fat by using this 7-second tapping trick every morning. Suddenly, this copy sounds like it's coming from a real place. 7 seconds, tapping trick? Surely those terms are too specific to be made up. It sounds like this writing is genuinely going to reveal a new way for me to burn belly fat based on real research. Specific mechanisms that claim to deliver an outcome, like the 7-second tapping trick, or even simply pointing to something hyper-specific, like why Clause 17.6 of Trump's latest executive order could result in a huge payout for retired Americans, are totally valid ways of making big claims sound more believable through specificity, and thus naturally avoiding your reader's BS detector. As you can see, there are a few different ways to make a claim more believable, and ultimately you can use all or a mix of these tactics to help your copy sound a bit more realistic and a bit less salesy. So what about our second element of salesy copy? How do we deal with bold language? In simple terms, to deal with bold language, we need to facilitate a reader's skepticism. That just means we need to show that we're sensitive to any misgivings or pushback that someone may have against the confidence in our words. It's no good doubling down on aggressive language or absolutes when people already don't trust us. Think about it. Would you be more likely to believe someone just because they shouted louder? No. Instead, here's what we can do. Our first method for facilitating skepticism is by acknowledging our readers' objections. What's the best way to disarm someone in an argument or to win someone's trust? Show them you genuinely understand or even agree with them. Look at how the tone of this copy shifts when we make a simple tweak in acknowledging the obvious objection. Earn £500 extra every month with this 100% guaranteed method. Instead, how about £500 extra per month sounded too good to be true, until I realized what this guaranteed method actually was. See how much better that sounds? In this case, we're using a testimonial to help us acknowledge that our message sounds too good to be true, thus showing we understand the reader's concerns and that we will go on to address them in a moment. Or we could be even more direct. If someone is skeptical about how cheap our hair transplant service is, we could simply write, "We know that a high-quality hair transplant seems almost impossible at this kind of price." Acknowledging objections instantly softens any perceived arrogance and invites healthy skepticism from the reader that they feel will be answered very soon by the rest of our copy. But perhaps an even easier method of facilitating skepticism and avoiding bold language is just to loosen your absolutes. Instead of, "This insane secret will 100% save you from years of unnecessary back pain," listen to how this sounds. "I believe this secret could help you bend over with ease again." Doesn't that sound far less aggressive, far less arrogant? The person who says that second line certainly seems more trustworthy to me. Since humans have become conditioned to withdraw when we sense false promises, the power of words like "could" or "we truly believe" help build an air of sincerity that can be very appealing in the modern world. And this is such an easy way to deal with overly bold language. Loosening absolutes really helps tone down the salesy nature of your copy. And clients especially love when their voice comes across as considerate and trustworthy. One last method to consider when fixing bold language is turning statements into questions. What if I told you that softening language could be as easy as switching two words around? Don't believe me? Watch. These are the best noise-cancelling headphones of 2025. Are these the best noise-cancelling headphones of 2025? Whoa, suddenly we've gone from a salesy know-it-all to an investigative journalist trying to help the reader come to the best conclusion for them. This sounds almost stupidly simple, and look, in most cases it probably won't massively change the results of the copy in relation to your reader, but this two-word switch is a very quick hack for satisfying a client's desire not to come across as pushy. And we can take this even further to properly impact readers as well. Take a headline like, "This magnesium supplement is the true answer to fixing long-term constipation." If a reader's natural skepticism for solutions like yours is high, they'll immediately recognize this as a pushy ad and not give your copy the time of day. But let's imagine you switch to something like this. "Are magnesium supplements actually good for constipation? Let's look at the facts." Well, now that really has changed how someone might perceive this headline. It now genuinely seems like a page that's going to reveal the truth about magnesium supplements by simply softening its approach and not giving an absolute answer immediately where it might put the reader off. So there you go. Those methods are how you can tackle bold language in your copy. And you can see that in each case, the key is toning your copy down so it doesn't automatically trigger the reader's fight or flight response to a salesy sounding ad. Which of course brings us on to our last element of salesy copy. How do we deal with cliches? Well, if you find yourself using common phrases that crop up everywhere in sales copy, there's one surefire way to fix it. Use synonyms. If you've decided that a particular phrase or line of copy is crucial to include, but also sounds like a cliche, then just ask yourself if you can say it in a different way. If the phrase, "in just a few moments I will reveal," triggers that salesy flag for you, change it to something like, "in a minute you will see." It really can be as basic as that. Keep an eye out on what copywriting tropes are being commonly relied on in the market and avoid them by switching words out for similar ones. Remember, the idea is to avoid words that will remind readers of ads that they believe are scammy. Or you could just use the other method for dealing with cliches in your copy: cut them out entirely. An editing exercise that you should get used to as a copywriter is the "so what" question. For each line you write, ask yourself, so what? Is that line of copy adding anything to your message? Does it actually need to be there? So often, cliches become cliches because they are words or phrases used as unnecessary filler between the real meat of the copy. They are present in a lot of places because writers fall back on them to fill in space. Like, listen to this sentence. At the end of the day, micro-putting is the only way to improve your short game. What bit of that sentence would the reader actually care about? You guessed it, the second part. So, do we really need at the end of the day at all? Probably not. It's just stopping us from getting to the thing that matters. So, if you're worried that you rely too heavily on copywriting cliches, especially when their existence in your writing isn't adding anything to your message, just consider cutting them completely. Removing cliches that risk sounding salesy is a pretty good idea and is pretty easy to implement. Just replace or cut and you'll give your copy an even better chance of slipping through your reader's BS detector. And there you have it. Those were 8 specific methods for making your copy less salesy by focusing on the 3 elements that make it salesy in the first place. But I want to leave you with one easy way to think about all of this. You see, copywriting is really in 2 parts: what you say and how you say it. In other words, there's the message you communicate, and there are the actual words you use. Your first job as a copywriter is to make your reader feel the right things by communicating the right message. Your second job is to find the best words to do that. If you have decided that the correct message revolves around revealing your new method for fixing arthritis and giving them hope for pain-free hands, that's great. If that connects with your reader's desires, notions, identifications, or characteristics, then you'll have a winning message. But whether or not something comes across as salesy is usually down to how you communicate it. What words are you using to get that core message across? Because, as we've discussed, there is a big difference between warning, this new arthritis miracle cure will stop the pain straight away, and arthritis experts at Cambridge University discover a hidden pain reliever that could help sufferers older than 50. Both those lines are trying to communicate the same message, a new breakthrough in arthritis care. But one of them seems more trustworthy and less salesy than the other, doesn't it? So just remember to identify the message you want to communicate and then use the guide in this video to ensure you're writing that message in a way that doesn't sound salesy. You can use this what versus how test with every line of copy that you're worried about. First, work out what you want to communicate, then decide how you're going to write it. Congratulations, you now know how to prevent and tackle salesy copy. And hey, if you're ever in doubt, just remember, your copy can't go far wrong if you're telling the truth and you're making that truth fascinating. Good luck. If you want to get on the right track with your copywriting education and your copywriting career, check out our copywriting mega course. This completely free YouTube course will teach you the psychological principles that you should adhere to for writing compelling copy, the specific techniques that will help you identify the best messages, and multiple paths for finding clients and getting paid for all of this. If you're serious about this career, just click the link to go straight there and truly start your copywriting journey.